All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roundtable, Roundtable 91. I'm here with D Style Boxing, and I'm here with Dangerous Dave from the Shoe Shine podcast. I want to get started with this topic because a lot of people are reporting that this George Kambosos Devin Haney rematch has been signed, sealed, and delivered and set for October 16th. But Devin Haney was being interviewed by FightHype.com. Shout out to FightHype. And he came out and said that this is not set and there are other opportunities and other options out there for him. And Bob Arum was also interviewed by FightHype, and he also contradicted the rumors of the fight being set for October 16th. And he said that it's not finalized yet, and he's still working with the Australian government to get this thing finalized. So I'm up in the air here. I'm skeptical. I know that they were looking for other opponents. I know Devin Haney isn't really thrilled rematching Kambosos, and I know Bob Arum is not thrilled that he has to put on this rematch because it doesn't look like it's going to generate nearly the amount of money that the first one did. So do you guys think something's up here? Why is this taking so long? What's going on? And do you think that they're possibly trying to go in another direction here and talk George Kambosos into exercising this rematch clause? What do you think, D?
Quote, I can't wait for the rematch with Kambosos Devin Haney, unquote, has said nobody ever. Like, that's never been said. Those words have never been uttered or quoted by anybody. Okay? Nobody wants to see this fight. No one. Nobody wants to see it because, one, it wasn't really an exciting fight. Second, it was too one-sided, so it wasn't even competitive. It wasn't competitive. It wasn't exciting. Kambosos didn't bring anything to the table himself to that fight. He looked outclassed in that fight. And as boxing fans, I still believe most of us want to see competitive, compelling fights. We don't want to really see a rerun of something that wasn't even excited to begin with. And I think Arum is included in that. I think Haney is probably thinking to himself, why? Like, I don't really get anything out of this. Although it'll probably be an easy outing for him, so why not? I'm thinking, but he probably just can't really get up for it, really. And I think he would rather have a fight with a Lomachenko. I think he would rather have I know this is a pipe dream at this point, but maybe a Tank Davis fight down the line or something like that. A Ryan Garcia. Like, I think he's thinking down that line. I think Kambosos is in his rearview mirror. And I don't believe in rematches if fights are this one-sided. I just don't. The point of a rematch is we got to run it back because it was close. This is, other than the fact that it's contractual. And look, I'm going to stay consistent before anybody jumps on me, okay? I said Wilder deserved his third fight because it was in a contract, right? So Kambosos, by that same token, deserves it too, I guess, right? But at least Wilder Fury had that first fight that was exciting. You know what I mean? At the very least. We don't have anything in this case, to be honest with you. And I think Arum is thinking to himself, there's really not a lot of money to be made in this fight. It's too much of a hassle to be done in Australia. And I'm pretty sure behind the scenes, they're working on talking Kambosos out of it. I just believe that. Okay? It's my opinion.
Dave, what are your thoughts, brother? Do you think this fight comes off, or do you think they're trying to work their way around it?
I was shocked to see the report. Dan Rafael had pretty much said that the fight's going to be happening October 15th and in the home turf of Kambosos. But, if you read into Bob Arum, as you guys have pointed into, it seems like he wants to go in the direction of getting Haney a shot or giving Lomachenko a fight. Lomachenko's expressed he's ready to get back in the gym and fight this October, which would make him the perfect opponent. And I firmly believe that Bob Arum didn't get Haney over here in that deal to have him fight these type of fights. That's just a waste of everybody's time. Now, there is like you said, a rematch clause that could be executed at a later time. But I think what he's really concerned with is that Devin Haney's outgrowing the 135-pound division, just like Ryan Garcia. Haney is a big kid, and he's already expressed he's really interested in seeing what he's going to do eventually at 140. So the time is now to make that fight with Lomachenko, who brings a lot to the table, a former pound-for-pound fighter. And they want to get him, use that resource. They paid all this money for Haney. You got to get together a big fight here in the States. It would probably do very, very well. Maybe something even Bob Arum could finally try a pay-per-view. Maybe finally he could put one together with Haney. So I think they're going to go in the direction of Lomachenko and somehow get Kambosos to take some step-aside cash.
Gotcha. So the big fight this weekend, the only really significant fight that I know of this weekend is Danny Garcia making his debut at 154 pounds versus Jose Benividez, who also himself has fought his last couple fights at 154 and really hasn't had his career at this weight, just his last couple. So this is kind of, I think, a weight class that's probably too big for both guys, in my opinion. Both guys started at 140, and now they're both at 154. You could argue that both these guys are small 154 pounders, but this is going to be Danny Garcia's first fight at 154. Does Jose Benividez have a shot here? Could this fight be interesting? Could it be entertaining? I'm going to start with you, Dave. How do you see this fight playing out?
I think actually we might see an entertaining scrap. Jose Benavidez is always game. If you talk to a lot of Mexican Americans long enough, they'll tell you that PBC curates these fighters. They get a bunch of them to just be opponents, right? And that's what I worry about fighters like Gabe Flores Jr., who we just fought this past week, and entertaining the idea of going over to PBC when he should be thinking about semi-retirement or fully retire. Jose Benavidez, after that gunshot, after that he, took to the leg, he's never really developed into what the talent he could have fully been. He's at like unrealized full potential. And also what's not helped him at all is that he's, like you said, he started at 140 and has fought as high as middleweight. He hasn't really found a suitable weight class. And even today he's talking about, can I get a rematch with Terrence Bud Crawford? He can box, but ultimately that leg injury, the shrapnel in his leg, it's pretty vicious. And I notice he has a really hard time planning on his power shots. And you're gonna see that this weekend. And Danny Garcia is gonna probably have enough power to hurt Jose Benavidez. But ultimately, I see Danny Garcia coming off with a win. The question is, how impressive will it be? Because PBC's got such a great stable of young 154-pound fighters from Fundora, Tim Tszyu. You have Jesus Ramos Jr., another great prospect at 154 pounds. Can he get through the young lions at 154? Because, even if he beats Jose Benavidez, that doesn't merit a fight with Charlo. It just doesn't. So, but ultimately, I think he wins this weekend.
Yeah. Do you think this fight could even be remotely competitive? Danny Garcia is a huge favorite here, and everyone's saying he's going to knock out Benavidez pretty easily. What are your thoughts?
Jose Benavidez hasn't won a fight since 2018. We're talking 4 years ago, and he's only fought twice since. It's going to sound harsh. It is. So I just want to give everybody a warning. Sound very harsh. And I pray and I hope that I'm wrong. I don't want to be right. But let me just tell you guys right now. I think this is going to be a beatdown. I think Danny Garcia is going to beat down Jose Benividez Jr. And believe me, I'm a big fan of David Benavidez. We had him on Rope-a-Dope Radio when he was a hot prospect, the prospect of the year. You remember that, babe?
Correct, yeah. Yeah.
That was the same show where we had Paulie Malignaggi afterwards.
Yeah.
The classic show there. But that's a different story. Look, so I'm a big fan of Jose Benavidez. He's the better brother in terms of skills. He's better than David. The problem is he's a one-legged man. He got shot in the leg. That's never going to get better. There's no amount of work. There's no amount of anything he can do to get rid of that, to cure that, to make that better. There's nothing in modern science today that's going to make him able to box at the high level that he needs to box at to compete with the Danny Garcia. You can say whatever you want about Danny Garcia. No one-legged man's going to beat him. And a one-legged man hasn't won a high competition at anything. Somebody name me a competition in any sport where a one-legged man won. Please, I'll wait. Oh, Batista, a one-legged man won a race at this. A one-legged man won. One-legged dudes don't win competitions at anything at a high level. A one-legged man's not going to beat Danny Garcia because a one-legged man's never won at anything. I'm sorry. All right? He ain't going to win. He didn't even win his last fight. If we keep it real, that was a gift, the fact that he got a draw in that fight. And even if you think it was, I mean, that was not a dude that should have gone, other than the fact that he's a one-legged man, it just isn't a guy that is at the level of Jose Benividez. Jose Benividez should have been the next big thing. I was higher on him than I'm on Virgil, and I'm high on Virgil. I thought he was going to be something special, and he was something special, but something unfortunate happened, and I worry about him. I think he's going to get hurt. I think people are completely overlooking this, in my opinion. All right. So look, I'm not going to put myself on a high horse and say I'm going to, you know, I'm still going to cheer for the guy, and I hope he proves me wrong. I swear to God, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think it's going to end pretty, bro. I think he's going to get hurt in this fight. I really do.
Yeah, I think Dave made a great point about, you know, not being able to push off and throw power shots with that leg, because it's his back leg that I believe is the injured leg. And he can't really sit and plant and sit down on hard shots. And if he can't throw anything hard to keep Danny Garcia off him, then Danny Garcia is going to have a field day. He really is. And if you're not mobile, because Danny has problems with guys who are mobile, who can outmaneuver him. And because he's got that bad leg and he's not going to be able to move very well, he hasn't shown the ability to move very well in recent fights. He's looked like he lost a step. And even when, you know, early in his career, when the leg wasn't injured, he wasn't the biggest puncher in the world anyways. So now that's just going to become even more of an issue for him with the bad leg. So I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But I just think this is going to be a very one-sided beatdown. I agree with you, D-Style. This fight is not going to be pretty. I think it's going to end within 5 rounds. And if it goes the distance, I will be surprised if this fight does go the distance. And I'll be even more shocked if Benavidez wins this fight or this fight is close at all. So I just don't see this fight being a competitive fight at all. So let's switch gears here. Let's talk about the little guys, Leo Santa Cruz, Leigh Wood. WBA has ordered this fight. They're trying to consolidate their belts, so they say. They've been very inconsistent with that rule, but they're using that excuse for trying to order this fight. Leo Santa Cruz wanted a unification fight with Ray Vargas. The WBA denied that. They're saying, no, we want you to – we're trying to – like I said, they're trying to consolidate these belts, so they ordered this fight with Leigh Wood. But another twist to this whole story is now they're saying that the split would be 75-25 in Leo Santa Cruz's favor. And Ben Davidson, Leigh Wood's trainer, was being interviewed, and they asked him, what do you think of this split? What's going to happen here? And he's not sure that Leigh Wood's going to take this fight. So what's going to happen here? What do you guys think of this fight? Do you think it's going to happen? Do you think it's fair, the split? How do you see this whole thing playing out? Dave, we'll start with you.
First of all, I want to remind everybody that didn't read that Boxing Scene story about the WBA scandal to go and check that out, how the WBA has a third-party entity to accept bribes, essentially. So I was all smoke and mirrors the very next day when they came out with this WBA ordering Leo Santa Cruz to finally defend his title, right? Oh, let's divert everybody's attention from what's really going on there. At first glance, I'm like, wow, man, they're going to force Leo Santa Cruz to defend the title that he hasn't defended in 3 years. We know what happened when he moved up to 130 and fought Tank Davis. All wrong for him. All wrong for him. Can he get back down to 126 and still be an effective champion? Leigh Wood is coming off, arguably at one of the top fights of the year so far in 2022. Fight of the year contender for sure. And Leigh Wood merits and deserves this fight with Leo Santa Cruz. But he's quite the big star across overseas, Leigh Wood, right? He is. He's a big star in his own right. And that 75-25 split is not a small caveat, because Leigh Wood, you're absolutely right, Pete. He can stay at home domestically and have a rematch with Conlon, which people they would sell that out. The live gate would be tremendous. tremendous for that. He doesn't stand to make a lot of money fighting Leo Santa Cruz. Does he want to take the fight just to for legacy? Does he want to take that fight for 25% legacy? It's a lot of money being left on the table. And at the same time, Leo Santa Cruz isn't getting that fight he wants with Ray Vargas. Obviously, he thinks he can beat Ray Vargas, and that could be domestically a humongous fight in Los Angeles, where Leo Santa Cruz has a large audience base. I don't think that fight is going to be made. Somebody's going to walk away giving up one of those titles. I think maybe that was what they're going for. Either Leigh Wood is vacating his title or stepping aside, or Leo Santa Cruz. We'll see how it pans out.
D, what do you think of this move by the WBA? You think this fight even comes off?
I mean, you know what's funny is that like this isn't standing out because of all the other allegations that are coming out of the WBA. This is like nothing. But look, man, I feel like they're giving Leo too much for doing nothing. Not little, nothing. For years now. Like at this point, they should be telling the dude to do 50-50. You know what I mean? Like, yo, if you want to keep this belt, you haven't done shit with this belt. Like at least even 60-40 or something. It's my opinion. But I want to see Leo Santa Cruz fight Ray Vargas, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that's a fight to make. I think Ray Vargas will do us all a favor and snatch that belt, and he will represent. He will represent as a real champion, not like Leo Santa Cruz, because his name is Ray Vargas. He's a king. Okay, the moment that dude came out of his mom's vagina, the moment he came out, all right, they said this dude's a king. We're gonna name him Ray. Okay, because that's what he is, and he will rid us of this Leo Santa Cruz curse. He will defend the belt. He will hold on to the belt. He will go out to unify more belts, and we'll be talking about. You'll be telling your grandchildren about Ray Vargas. That's what I believe. As far as Leigh Wood, look, man, I'm sorry, but I think he's a Cinderella story. It's a great story, but I don't think he's going to last.
Yeah, I don't think this fight's going to come off. I just don't think that it makes sense for Leigh Wood. Like Dave had mentioned and I mentioned earlier, I think he's developed a pretty decent following over in the UK, and I think that he can fight other people over there. I think he can get some good domestic fights over there and make some good money. Selling out, some stadiums over there. I think if he fights Leo Santa Cruz, he's going to have to give up too much. Not only the money, but obviously it'll be a PBC. It'll be a PBC fight, and everything will be Leo Santa Cruz's way. And why would he want to go through all that, right? When he can probably get a better money fight and not have to make so many concessions. So I don't think the fight comes off. I think he'll pass on the fight, and if he does pass on the fight, at least he'll still have that regular title, I guess. And in today's boxing, having a belt means something, whether it's a regular belt or not. So,
plus he doesn't beat Leo.
Yeah, he probably doesn't beat Leo. I don't think so.
He just had a miracle win. That's all he had. I'm saying.
Yeah. He was behind in the fight too, so
I don't think he wins a rematch.
Yeah, I don't think he wins a rematch either. But I could be wrong. Shout out to Corey Lee Boxing. He says, awesome listening at work. It's ice season, CLB. Thank you, Corey Lee. All right. Now, I'm confused here because Ryan Garcia seems to talk out of both sides of his mouth. Now, Floyd Mayweather came out and said that if he wants to fight Tank Davis, that Ryan Garcia would have to go back down to 135. And Ryan Garcia has fought his last two fights at 140. He said he's not going back down to 135. But now, after hearing Mayweather's comments, he turns around and says, any weight, any time, right? So he says he's willing to go back down to 135 for this fight. So should we believe him? Because a couple weeks prior, he said that he would never go back down 135, and that if Tank wants to fight him, it has to be at 140. Is it even smart for him to go back down to 135 after fighting his last 2 fights at 140? Should he play this weight game of going up and down? And do you even think he's serious about it, or is this all cap? Is this Lion Ryan at his best once again? Dave, what do you think, brother?
Yeah, there's a lot of Lion Ryan, but you know what? LRB is working. He's working full. What am I trying to say? LRB is working extra today on social media in this game. He's playing with Ryan Garcia, going back and forth. Part of me thinks that Ryan Garcia is never going back to 135, and it's a terrible disadvantage to his physical frame. But he's saying all the right things lately. All of a sudden, he's saying all the right things. But there's way too many obstructions right now between PBC and DAZN working this fight and splitting the pay-per-view and whether or not who's going to actually carry the pay-per-view in the U.S. There's way too many things and distractions, and I don't foresee this fight being happening at all this year. And part of me also feels that it might not ever happen because, in a way, Gervonta Tank Davis and Floyd can just wait until Ryan outgrows his frame right now. And you have this week, we had Danny Garcia even saying he thinks Ryan Garcia is a full-blown welterweight. And really, his frames will support being a welterweight before we know it. Maybe as early as next year, we could see Ryan Garcia fighting at 147 pounds, which will make that fight with Gervonta Tank Davis impossible and just something in the past, something we used to talk about. So I don't think this fight's going to happen this year at all. And that's where I stand right now on that.
All right. D, what do you think, man? Is Ryan selling wolf tickets once again? You're on mute, brother.
So look, in this particular case, it's hard to kind of assess, right? Because I kind of feel like both sides are playing this game and both sides kind of know the fight's not going to happen. But both sides are trying to blame the other side for ducking.
Trying to save face.
Yeah. It's like a game of chicken and or some shit that they're doing, right? But none of them really want to fight. I kind of feel like the same thing happened with Isaac Cruz and Ryan Garcia. Like they were both accusing the other side of ducking, and meanwhile they were already agreeing to other fights. It doesn't make sense to me. I think like everyone knows. It's like the running joke. Like everyone knows, Ryan, you're gonna fight JoJo. Okay, like we know that's the next fight. Okay, that's what I believe is gonna happen. And I do think he can make 135. I really do. I just think he'll do it if it's for the right fight or for the title. But since, if Fortuna came out and he was willing to, okay, sometimes that happens. 2 fighters agree to, fight, and let's kind of, why don't we do ourselves a favor and get rid of the weight cut? You know what I mean? And we could just come out and fight. Because we're going to be the same dudes on fight night anyway. And I feel like that's what happened, right, in Fortuna Ryan Garcia fight. I do not believe that either guy wants this fight. I don't. They're trying to, like you said, save face, and they want to put themselves in a position where it's like, okay, you see, I was trying to make it, but he ducked me, right? Because that's going to give them some clout, like the site that ducked. It's going to look bad in the situation, and I believe that's what's happening in this case. It's my opinion.
Yeah, the confusing thing to me is where does either guy go? I mean, who can take Tank fight over at 135 over at PBC, and who's Ryan gonna fight over at 140? Because Top Rank's got a lot of the 140 pounders, and I just don't see those guys crossing the street. I think there's other fights out there. I think Ramirez and Zepeda are gonna fight for a vacant title, and I'm hearing Josh Taylor and Catterall are talking about a rematch. I'm just confused about, what's going on here. What's gonna happen? Like, what do these guys think they're gonna do moving forward? And I said this before on Sunday. I was talking to my partner Eric, and we were talking about, who do we blame here? And a lot of times you want to blame the promoters. A lot of times, we want to blame the fighters. But these platforms are the people who are paying the rights fees for these fights. And these guys are getting good money to not fight top level guys. So they are not incentivized to have to take risks because they're not taking risks and they're being rewarded for not taking risks.
Rewarded
So,
handsomely.
Yeah. So
to the
like,
point, Tuna, $2 million for Ryan Garcia to fight Fortuna. $2 million used to be a milestone to say I'm $1 million fighter. Now he's a $2 million fighter for fighting the quality opponents of Fortuna.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So what happens? I mean, if these guys don't fight each other, then unfortunately, what's going to happen is we're going to be the recipient of a whole bunch of shitty fights down the road, to be honest with you. And I'm not looking forward to it. But, you know, on a bright note, at least we have Devin Haney and we got Shakur Stevenson. These are the young and up and coming guys that could carry 130 and 135 for us. And then when Devin Haney moves up to 140, you know, given his action at 135, he's not gonna shy away from a challenge at 140, and Shakur Stevenson's the same. So I've said it before and I'll say it again. You know, the boxing is gonna move on without these guys, right? And these guys are, at least Ryan Garcia is 23, but Tank, I don't know what the hell he's doing.
Tank's already like if we were to round up, he's 30. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, that's what's going on, and I don't think either fan base, to be honest with you, I don't think either fan base is doing us us as boxing any favor, because the Ryan Garcia fans are all in on Garcia, and they're saying that Tank's ducking and everyone else is ducking him, and then the Tank fans, you know, like Calix says, like, he wins every hypothetical matchup on paper. He's undefeated. He beats anybody. There's no need for him to prove anything. I think. I would hope anyway that the fans come on board and start demanding more of these guys. You know, push your dudes a little more, okay? No, just nudge them a little bit, steer them towards the right direction at least. You know, so we could get these damn fights on. And so, because enabled behavior is only repeated if you enable it, okay? Stop being enablers, all right, and start challenging these fighters to go out and fight each other. Like I saw someone in the chat put, you know, Ryan, he don't need to fight for belts. He could just keep fighting who he's fighting. Make you haters, make him rich. Like, how does that do anything for you? I don't know what that does for you, brother. I don't like him getting more money in his pockets. I don't know what it does for you as a boxing fan. I don't know what satisfaction it brings to you.
Well, once again, we're not really making these fighters rich. We're making some of these fighters rich, like fighters who we actually buy pay-per-views for. But how many people are buying Tank's pay-per-views, right? So, as I said earlier, the platforms that these fights are being broadcast on, they're making the fighters rich. They're the ones putting up the dough. Because with all due respect, you know, you hear Leonard Ellerbe on Twitter going back and forth with all these fans and really makes himself look bad by doing so, because you know, he comes off as being this lofty guy in the sport of boxing, but yet he's talking to fans who supposedly don't know what they're talking about. So if these fans don't know what they're talking about and they're trolls and everyone's an idiot, then why are you getting so angry by what they say? Why are you going back and forth with these people? And why do you feel the need to always try to justify Tank's pay-per-view numbers, Tank's this, Tank's that? You know, again,
well, the numbers aren't that good.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But we're not stupid. We know that the numbers aren't that good, but yet he's trying to tell us that they are.
Let me tell you something I said to Calix yesterday. Okay, do you remember when the record labels started coming out with a parental advisory sticker?
Yes. Okay.
Yes. I kind of feel that's what boxing promoters, or some of them, are doing to us when they put the pay-per-view label on a fighter, right? It's like
that's a good one.
That's what they're doing, because there was a time where artists were like, "Yo, I want that label because that label means it's cool. That label means I made it." Like you know what I mean? Like, Tank Davis is not a pay-per-view star. He just happens to be a fighter that fights on pay-per-view, right? But they put him on pay-per-view because it gives that perception that, oh, Pay-per-view means that's the highest you can go in boxing. That's as high as you could go. He's already fighting on pay-per-view. No, like the Latin Fury cards were on pay-per-view. Chavez Jr.'s a prospect, was headlining boxing pay-per-views. Sound more than this shit, by the way. Okay, the Pinoy Power, those for pay-per-views. There's been plenty. I mean, porn is on pay-per-view. Just because you're on pay-per-view doesn't mean you've made it. Okay, like just being on pay-per-view doesn't make you a pay-per-view star, right?
Not only that, just because it's pay-per-view doesn't mean people are going to pay to view you either, right? So
225, a high end, the best, and that's like the people that like Tank Davis reporting that he's had successful pay-per-views. So there's some bias there, right? Reporting that he did at the most 225,000. I'm sorry. Those I'm not saying they're bad numbers, but they're not pay-per-view star numbers. They're not like, oh, we got to keep them on pay-per-view numbers. They're not. Like, it just isn't. Like, I think you're better off doing over 1 million on ESPN, to be honest with you. Like, if you're going to be doing that.
I would agree.
It'd be going back to Ryan Garcia's next opponent. I'm convinced, if you read into Rick Marigan, it's almost certain that he's going to get Jojo Diaz that fight at the end of this year. And it's going to be a blown up Jojo Diaz, a former 126, again, a natural featherweight champion, moving up to 140 pounds. He's going to be bloated as hell. And it's going to provide for another, KO knockout reel for Ryan Garcia. And they're going to sell that to the fans in LA. Like, look at the star that we have here. Look at the star we have in Ryan Garcia knocking out another guy. And, it'll actually do a really nice live gate in Los Angeles. I'm curious if this Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor talk is real, because it's going to provide cover for whoever Gervonta Tank Davis fights or doesn't fight, right? They're going to gravitate. All the attention's going to shift. Floyd's back in the limelight. Here we go again. Floyd's going to, risk his 50-0 record and fight Conor McGregor one more time. And that's how 2022 will pan out. Ryan Garcia will be in the exact same shoes he was earlier this year, beating up nobodies or blown up featherweights.
I just don't understand why these guys are stars, bro.
And Jojo Diaz will definitely take that fight.
Absolutely. He's got a major civil lawsuit against him, a sexual assault civil lawsuit. It's going to cost him money. And you could tell he wants to fight, man. He's not going after a 140-pound title. He needs a good payday.
Yeah.
It sounds like Jojo needs to stop talking about Ryan's problems and worry about his. Yeah. That sounds of it.
Shout out to D-Style. He says both sides playing the blame game and want people to buy that they're the one being ducked. Yeah. I got it. This is an interesting one. He said, by the way, oh, not this one. There was one. This one. Saw Leonard Elby at the sportsbook at Orleans last year. Told him, let's flip a coin for $10K. He looked at me like, who's this dude? He said 300, and I said, save your money and go get lunch. That's funny. Well, I'm going to look at you like you're crazy, too, if you want to flip a coin for 10 G's, brother. I mean,
Sin City Syndicate's a friend of mine. He's a whale as far as I know. So
I believe him.
Could be a lot of truth to that.
No, I'm not saying he don't have the 10 grand, but I'm saying I wouldn't want to put the 10 grand.
I want to know, would he have taken if Leonard would have said, okay, let's do it.
I'm not questioning his his credit, what he got. I'm not saying he don't got it, but I know he got it. But I got it, but I don't want to lose it over a fucking coin flip. Is what I'm trying to say. That's all I'm saying. I'd look at you crazy too.
Well, you don't think Ryan should at least try to get a belt or become a champion anyway? I mean, Haney has all of them, but at 135, because wouldn't it have been a wasted time at 135?
For me, yeah.
Here's the thing. Like you said, he spent so much time at 135, and for what? And this whole thing about belts not mattering. Now, we're going to get into it later about someone else who says belts all of a sudden don't matter. We'll talk about that later in the show. But is this like the new hashtag now? Belts don't matter. Is this what it's going to be about now? Like, are they trying to just recreate this sport? Obviously, time evolves and things evolve and things grow and develop and things do change. But at this point, like you got fighters, fans, and people involved in this sport that want to reinvent it. Does it need to be reinvented? Like now we turn around and say belts don't matter. Then what is it always going to be like are we going to become businessmen and women now? The fans, are we going to be more concerned about who's the better promoter, who makes the most money, who's generating more pay-per-view buys? Is that gonna take precedent over who's the better fighter now?
Looks like it. I mean, Steven Espinosa today is talking up this big game about he's going to continue the relationship with Jake Paul, that he's got all these fights in mind for Jake Paul, and they're going to be big pay-per-view generators.
Well, the question is, I mean, how much are Jake Paul's pay-per-view? Like his last fight with Woodley, like I heard it didn't even do that good.
Well, and that's another thing now, because we're not even getting these numbers now from these broadcasters anymore. Showtime's not releasing numbers anymore. DAZN isn't really releasing that. I guess we found out, I think, that Joshua Usyk did, I think, 600 pay-per-view buys or something like that. Or that so now we're finding out now, because now they're charging now they're charging us pay-per-views. So now they're going to probably release numbers now, because they're going to try to like let us know what's going on and try to justify them, selling us pay-per-views all of a sudden. But I'll be interested to see what this Joshua Usyk rematch does pay-per-view buy-wise.
Here's what I'll say about Jake Paul. I don't care that he's on quote-unquote pay-per-view. Okay? I don't look at pay-per-view as like the holy grail that like a lot of boxing fans look at it as. I don't. Okay? To me, it's totally possible that a fight could be big in terms of legacy-wise, and it could just be a world championship boxing card. You know what I mean? It's not that it's on pay. It's that they name it Showtime Championship Boxing, and it's not. That's not what it is. Call it something else. Call it whatever you want to call it, but it's not World Championship Boxing. That's not what it is. All right? And it never has been that. And I think that what that does is it hurts the credibility of boxing, and it validates to people that think boxing is a joke and no one really cares about it anymore. They look at that and they say, look, like a Jake Paul could go over there and he headlines like the fucking pay-per-views over there. Look, they're calling it World Championship Boxing. That's my issue with, it's not really with Jake Paul, it's with the people promoting it. It was that Espinosa acting like without Jake Paul, nobody would be talking about boxing or something, right? No, maybe Showtime isn't hot, but the rest of boxing ain't doing that bad this year, Espinosa. You know what I mean? But look, I get it, man. At the end of the day, it's his job to make Showtime money, and I guess he's doing what he needs to do, but I ain't selling what they're buying.
Well, it goes against their mission statement, because
I'm not buying what they're selling, sorry.
Yeah, it goes against their mission statement, because they have the show box on there, and they talk about how they've built stars. You have guys like Ricky Hatton, even Zab Judah, and a lot of these fighters who started on Showbox, right? And they became who they are today, or when they reached the pinnacle of their careers. And now you're doing something that's the antithesis of that, and you're just taking somebody and circumventing that process of building fighters, because that's what they were doing. They were building fighters and making them stars. Now this is a guy who just jumped in front of everyone and jumped the line and circumvented that process. It goes against everything that they represent and stand for, so to speak. And
do you remember like how people would laugh at, like, remember as boxing fans, we would make fun of the UFC because Lesnar had like 3 fights and became the world champion.
Yes.
And then like CM Punk was co-headlining like UFC pay-per-views, like in his first fight.
Yeah.
Just shit like that. And now we're doing that. But here's the difference between us and Dana. Dana decided to use those guys and make them an example to show people that UFC is not something to fuck with, and you're going to respect our shit. James Toney was talking shit. He put him in there with Randy Couture. He didn't put him in there with some dude, with some basketball player so he could look good in the cage and let's just make money out of it. When CM Punk wanted to fight, he put him in there with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt who fucked him up. Okay, he didn't try to like milk him as long as possible to make money, right? And Lesnar, you actually put him in there with Mir. Okay, Now, the only difference with Lesnar, he was a legitimate NCAA like amateur wrestling champion and a freak of an athlete. That's a big difference, okay? But so that's the smart thing Dana did. He said, okay, I'm going to use these guys' names, but to show people this isn't a game. You don't play UFC. And he made an example out of them. Boxing doesn't do that. Like the first thing boxing thinks about, and even a lot of you fans out there, instead of thinking, you know what? Well, why is this dude acting like why is he treating this shit like a game and making a mockery out of it? Put him in there with somebody that's going to teach him a lesson. No, we don't do that. Instead, oh no, he's going to make money. He's popular. He brings in pay-per-view. Like all this other shit. We don't make examples out of guys, bro. We let other athletes and celebrities come and make a mockery of this shit. That's what we do. Okay? Troller put fucking Victor Belfort in there to embarrass a almost 70-year-old Evander Holyfield. Right? That's what we do to our sport. All right? That's what we do. That's a position. That's what we do. All right? So for all this shit, people talk about Dana White. At the very least, he protects his product. At the very least, he makes examples out of guys. All right? And that's what I'm hoping happens with Rockman, by the way. I hope he makes an example out of Jake Paul.
Yeah, I'm rooting for shouldn't say this, but I'm rooting for Rockman Jr. to beat Jake Paul.
You could say it. Why not?
Well, I try to be unbiased, but
I mean, shit.
You can't be unbiased all the time. Sometimes, I could be objective, but I have to be. I can be biased. That's the thing. So this next topic is very, very surprising to me because I did not know this, and I want to give a shout out to the Boxing Voice, who recently interviewed Ronnie Shields, and Ronnie Shields revealed something that was very, very surprising, to say the least. Basically said that he thinks, and he told AJ that he's too comfortable in the UK. And he should relocate he should have relocated to the U.S. to train for fights. And when AJ and him were talking, and they were, discussing the trainer situation, whether Ronnie Shields would be the trainer or not, and he was working with Ronnie Shields for a little while. Ronnie Shields, declined the offer because he said that he had too many fighters in the United States that he had to work with and had fights coming up, and he didn't want to go over to the UK. And leave those fighters and not be able to give them the attention that they needed. So I was surprised to hear this, that he actually turned the job down. And he also recommended to Anthony Joshua, Robert Garcia as well. And these are all things that I did not know. I thought, Joshua was the one that didn't want to go with Ronnie Shields, but it was the other way around. Ronnie Shields turned down this assignment. So what I want to ask the panel is, what do you think of Ronnie Shields' comments about AJ being too comfortable in the UK? He should change his environment and train over somewhere else, whether it be the US or somewhere else, and not train in the UK because, again, he's too lax over there, and obviously he doesn't feel that that's the optimum environment for him. So what do you think about this, Drew? First of all, welcome. Good to have you on. What do you think of Ronnie Shields' comments, and do you agree with them at all?
You know what? I somewhat do agree with it, because if you look at it, McCracken hasn't really gave AJ the best advice, and his preparations for some fights are questionable. So, the way that he was brought up and in his career and everything, it could have been hey. He had an easy time and everything. He didn't get a hard fight until he fought Dillian White. So, and that as he raised the level of competition, Dillian White, little tiny bit of a problem with him before he stopped him. Vladimir Klitschko exposed him a lot, but he stopped him. It was a 41-year-old Klitschko. Povetkin hurt him a little bit, but he stopped Povetkin. He was 40 years old too. But when he got to Andy Ruiz, I know it was a late sub. It was a small guy, but Andy Ruiz was able to get inside and weld on him and stop him. And Usyk, I don't know why McCracken would think of a game plan to box with the boxer as good as Usyk was, and I had that fight 9-3, Usyk, and he nearly got stopped by Usyk in the last round. So maybe if he had an American trainer and he was training in the U.S., he would have been a better fit heavyweight.
I got you. Hey, what do you think of Ronnie Shields' comments, and do you agree with them?
Of course I agree with him. I mean, look, if you have an opportunity to, if you, by the way, are going on this Who Wants to Be My Trainer tour in the United States, you're the one that came over here looking for a United States trainer. That's what you did. Nobody asked you to do that. You did that. Like, if you wanted, like, you would think, why didn't you go in the UK and look for some dude in the UK? You didn't do it. There's a lot of good trainers in the UK, by the way, but you didn't do that. You specifically went on a who can get the dog out of me tour. Like that's pretty much what it was. Like, you know what I mean? Who let the dogs out? Like that's what he came here to do. He wanted to know who could get the dog out, right? And he specifically talked to Ronnie Shields. And I swear to God, when I was hearing Ronnie Shields talk about it, I said to myself, you know what? This is the dude right here. This is the dude you need to hire. And people agree, disagreed, whatever, but it was what AJ was looking for. Lennox Lewis would come to the States and train in the Poconos. All right? That's what Lennox Lewis did. He didn't go stay over there in England. He went to isolate himself, and he committed himself to Emmanuel Stewart in his craft. That's what he did. All right? And I'm not saying that he's not training hard. AJ has never struck me as a guy that slacks it in training. And we've even talked to former sparring partners of his. They all tell us. We talked to that Alvis guy. He told us, look, he works hard. Like it's there, right?
Yeah.
But I just think it's a mentality thing. It's not a hard work thing. It's not a – I just think he could have found something out about himself if he left his country and he came to Texas. All right? So we're built different in Texas. I'm just saying. And if you would have trained here, it would have done something for him. I honestly believe that. You know, I'm not saying he would have won, but if he had a slim shot doing that, Slim left town. That's what I think. Because I don't know what crash course training Robert Garcia, who has no experience with heavyweights like this, is going to do for this guy. I have no clue. If Robert Garcia finds a way to make this dude beat Usyk, I mean, he's front runner for trainer of the year, in my opinion. If he could do that. We'll see, but I doubt it. I don't think he can do it. I don't think, dude, you could take Emmanuel Stewart from the grave, and I don't think he could do it. All right, but it's whatever. But I honestly believe AJ's in. Like, I'm not counting him out, but I think he's in trouble. I think AJ's in trouble. Outside of Usyk not being all there because of what's going on in his country and all that. Outside of that, I don't know what shot I give him, man. I just don't. You know, and you're not going to seduce him with hamburgers and tacos and all that shit I did to Andy Ruiz. That ain't going to work with Usyk. You know what I mean? Usyk don't eat tacos. Okay, he's going to make you eat jabs. That's what he's going to do.
Dave, what are your thoughts on all this? Are you surprised by any of it?
No, not surprised. I do agree with him. And I think it kind of points a little bit to the arrogance of Anthony Joshua. First, when I heard the news that Robert Garcia had won that sweepstakes, you know, that go find a new trainer, save your career, I thought, wow, he's going to come to California. He's going to train in California. And then I find out, no, he's being paid to go over there for months, over the entire camp. I mean, how many fighters did he leave behind to his kids in the gym to handle their fights, man? It's a big payday for Robert Garcia, but ultimately, I think when he won that rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr., it set in motion the thought that he could do this again. He can come back from a loss against anybody. But as we all know, Andy Ruiz and Usyk are two completely different fighters. And there isn't much that Robert Garcia is going to be able to change in Anthony Joshua in this short amount of time working. Basically, he's going to come up with a game plan for Anthony Joshua on being aggressive and knocking out the smaller fighter, to which Anthony Joshua is not going to be able to execute. He's not going to be able to execute it because ultimately he'll rely on his instincts, which have failed him. In that fight against Usyk. His natural instincts failed him and will probably fail him again in that rematch. And he'll have no one to blame but himself, which at that time, then he can take a really long time to figure out if he wants to box or be a celebrity in the UK. Whichever way he goes is fine with me, to be honest. By the way, had he trained here in California, there's a kid out of Robert Garcia's gym who just fought this weekend, a 6'9" massive Mexican-American beast named Antonio Mireles. Okay, signed a multi-year deal to Top Rank, 6'9". Robert Garcia says he's the next heavyweight champion of the world. He could have got some really good work with this young prospect. I mean, some serious work with Antonio Mireles. But no, he goes back to his comfort zone, right? It's all about what makes him comfortable.
Yo, if he wins this fight, bro, I'm gonna be singing "Who Let the Dog Out." I'm just saying, man. If he pulls his shit off,
You know, to me, it seems like Ronnie Shields was giving him a reality check. You know, he was telling him the cold, hard truth. He came out and said, you know, if I work with you, I'm gonna need a lot of time to get you where I need you to get to. I would prefer that we don't go right into an Usyk rematch. I would like you to get acclimated to my training methods. Let's, fight, stay busy fight first before we go into that rematch. That was one thing that Ronnie Shields said. Ronnie Shields also said that, we gotta change the environment, right? If we want to change things, we got to go all the way with it. I'm going to say something right now, and it may sound a little strong. I'm going to make a comparison. It's like if you're an alcoholic, right? And you want to stop drinking. You want to stop drinking, right? Part of the process to stop drinking is you got to stop hanging around your friends who you party and like to drink a lot too, who like to take you to the bars. So if you're saying, okay, I'm going to stop drinking. Fine. I'm going to make that change. But I'm still going to hang around with my friends who drink all the time and stick beers in my face. And I'm still going to go to the bars with my friends. But it doesn't matter. I'm still going to stop drinking. Have you really made that commitment to stop drinking if you don't, remove yourself from that environment? You see what I'm saying? You're not giving yourself the best chance to succeed at that goal if you don't change your environment. It's one thing saying you're going to do something. You can still go to the AA meetings, right? You could still talk to counselors. But unless you make the lifestyle changes, not just take one foot out, but take both feet out. So it looks like Joshua is 1 foot in and 1 foot out here. Has he really made the full transition to change? Or has he just did something to maybe make himself feel good, right? Make himself say, well, I got a new trainer. Give himself some false confidence going into this rematch that I can be better. I'm going to change my trainer, and all of a sudden, this guy is going to make me something that I never was before, right?
Are you trying to tell me something, or like, is this like some like double-edged sword type of thing going on right now?
Doing an intervention here. Don't worry about it. You're good.
My name is D-Style Boxing. I am an alcoholic, ladies and gentlemen.
We're not doing an intervention here. But yeah, so that's the thing, man. I just think that Anthony Joshua is looking for something to give himself confidence, right? And I think this trainer change is what in his head is doing that for him, right? So I'm surprised at how this whole thing played out. I'm surprised that, he didn't go with Ronnie Shields. And I'm surprised that he would not want to go to the United States like everyone else did. Who, like, when Klitschko went with Emmanuel Stewart, Lennox Lewis went with Emmanuel Stewart, they trained at Emmanuel Stewart's gym. That was one of the requirements. Miguel Cotto, same thing. He stopped training in Puerto Rico, came to the Kronks. When you train with Emmanuel Stewart, you train with Freddie Roach, you train at the Wild Card, and you train at Kronk. That's the way it goes, right? Now, Robert Garcia, all of a sudden, you have to ask yourself, why is he doing this?
He just lost Virgil over something similar to this, bro.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
So, again, that's a great point because now he's leaving all his fighters behind at the Robert Garcia Academy, and he's going to the UK and he's dedicating what? He's been training with allegedly, according to what he said, he's been over there since January, right? So he's bouncing back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Is that optimum for these other fighters that he's working with over at the Robert Garcia Academy? So Ronnie Shields is saying, no, that ain't going to work for me. I got Charlo, I got these other guys here. I'm not leaving these guys. These guys got some important fights coming up, big fights coming up. They need me here, right? So, and speaking of the psychology of it all, right? I know D-Star brought up the psychology of Anthony Joshua. He comes out this week and makes a statement that he feels as though he doesn't get the respect he deserves. And if he wins the fight against Usyk, that he's just going to vacate these belts, right? Obviously, I don't believe that. I don't think anyone on this panel believes that. But him saying that, once again, is his mind really right going into this fight? If he's really worried about getting respect, you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, like you were the heavyweight champion of the world, 2-time heavyweight champion of the world, right? That's a great accomplishment. You should feel good about yourself. Why do you care what these other people think? Obviously, no one wants to be thought poorly of, right? We all want to be liked, but we know everyone's not gonna like us. But again, you accomplished your goals. You did everything that you did. You reached the pinnacle in this sport. Why are you frustrated? Why are you not satisfied with your accomplishments? Why don't you have that confidence that you're a 2-time heavyweight champion? You already know that you should be respected. Why do you have to have someone tell you that you need to be respected?
This is his way, Joe. This is his way of showing that he's got the dog in him now. Like, I'm not going to tolerate no more disrespect. I'm going to throw away the titles after I win them. That's right. Like, bro, okay, where was his attitude after you lost? Like, immediately after with Ruiz? No, you wanted to hug him and congratulate him and look happy and smile. Where was his attitude before the Usyk fight? You were taking selfies with the dude. Like, where was his AG at? You know what I mean? Where was this dude that tells me you're acting fake? That's not you. It's an act. That's all it is, in my opinion.
And what do you think, David? This behavior and these statements coming out and trying to act like Tyson Fury, like he's acting out of character now. Oh, I'm going to vacate the title. That's something Tyson Fury would say, right?
I think it's great that you bring up how much of his flaws in the ring are attributed to his mental game, and whether or not he should have stayed with, continue to work with a sports psychologist, which is just as important, and who his trainer is and where he's actually training. All three of those are closely tied together. So I don't think he's going to get past Usyk, but I could be wrong. This upcoming fall.
Yeah, what do you think, Drew? You think he's acting out of pocket now? He's taking a page out of the Tyson Fury book by saying what he said this week?
You know what? At the end of the day, he can change trainers all he wants. It showed in the first fight. As he got more aggressive, he almost got stopped. What's Robert Garcia going to do? Show him how to hide his jab better? Show him how to foot that right hand better? End of the day, he can do whatever he wants, talk about vacated belts and everything. At the end of the day, he's not relevant without titles.
Yeah.
He loses again, his career's over.
And we talked about that before, Drew. We were going over the first fight. We said when he got more aggressive, he actually did worse, right? And if the plan is to make him more aggressive, he could get, again, this may sound crazy, he could get knocked out in this fight. He could get knocked out in the 8th, 9th roundish if he decides to come out guns a-blazing. Because we've seen him become less aggressive after that Klitschko fight. Fight after fight, he starting slower and slower. He started, trying to work his way through the fight. Even in that Pulev fight, he looked like, he was a little bit apprehensive of, coming out of the gate strong. He really started slow. And this has been a pattern, right? This isn't just something that happened overnight. This has been a slow transition. And I think once he got hurt and almost knocked out in that Klitschko fight, I think it kind of humanized him a little bit, right? And he started thinking to himself, hey, I'm vulnerable. I can get hurt. I can get stopped. I got dropped in that fight. I didn't like how it felt. I don't want to feel that again. Now, again, with Andrew Ruiz, you could say, well, what happened there? He got dropped again and, whatever. But he looked at Andrew Ruiz and said, this isn't the guy. He just wasn't concerned with Andrew Ruiz, right?
Yeah. Look, all I'll say is this. Even Emmanuel Stewart, his first fight with Klitschko was against Brewster. What happened in that fight, babe?
Got knocked out.
That's right. So, one fight isn't enough time. It just isn't.
Yeah. Calix, what's going on, brother? We were just talking about Ronnie Shields in an interview with the Boxing Voice, basically saying that he felt Joshua was getting too comfortable in the UK, and he advised Joshua to change his training environment. And actually, Ronnie Shields was the person who turned down the assignment, not Anthony Joshua turning him down, but he actually turned it down because he did not want to go over the UK. He did not want to leave his fighters and neglect his fighters over in the United States because they had fights coming up and he didn't want to neglect them. So the reason why he did not get the assignment was because he turned it down because he did not want to go over the UK and he didn't feel as though Joshua should stay in the UK to train. He felt as though he should change his whole environment. And he was the guy that actually recommended Robert Garcia to Anthony Joshua. What are your thoughts on Ronnie Shields' comments? And do you think he's right here?
Well, we're gonna get a good idea of that next month, but fair enough that Ronnie Shields didn't want to go over there. That's his decision, and it may work out good for him. He gets to keep his whole base happy, all of his fighters happy, his stable happy, and you never know. A lot of times after one fight, the fighter decides they don't want to go forward with you, so you're jeopardizing a stable of fighter possibly for one fighter. I get that. But as far as Anthony Joshua getting comfortable in the UK, where is he supposed to train? Where's he supposed to train? He lives in the UK, right?
Well, here's the thing, Calix, because this is something I mentioned earlier. So when Klitschko and Lennox Lewis went with Emmanuel Stewart, they trained at the Kronk gym. When Miguel Cotto and other fighters went with Freddie Roach, they trained at Wildcard. So I think when you make a transition to a trainer, it's customary that you go to his gym and train with that in that gym that the trainer trains at, right?
Right.
To get the full benefits of the training experience. So, obviously the fighter hires the trainer, but once the trainer is assigned the duty, then everything should be under his instruction, right? And everything should go under his direction. So once you start camp with that trainer, you should follow what that trainer wants you to do. So you got to go along with the principles of that trainer. Mm-hmm. And it would make sense to go to that trainer's gym, right? That's why Teddy Atlas left Alexander Povetkin, because he didn't want to go over in Russia and train him in Russia. He wanted Povetkin to come over. So if you're going to make the full sacrifice, right, and you're going to make the full commitment, then I believe you should go to that trainer's gym. It's a training camp.
He wanted him to go, he wanted him to go to Texas. It's not like he asked him to go to Louisiana. You know what I mean? No fan. He asked him to go to Texas, brother. I'm just saying.
No, that is fair. Since you put it that way. There have been instances I remember Malignaggi going over to LA to train going across the country to train in LA at Wild Card. So I understand that. I just don't know if we're reading too much into that, though. And you have to throw in that the fights in Saudi Arabia. How many times is a fight in Saudi Arabia? So would it be productive for Anthony Joshua to come to America to train, leave a time zone in the UK 6 hours? No, that's 8 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever it is, to go to America to train, and then go all the way back out there to Saudi Arabia a week or two before the fight? I don't know. At the end of the day, Joshua's going to do what he wants to do. He's the second biggest fighter in the sport globally behind Canelo. I think we all agree with that.
I agree with that.
He's gonna do what he wants to do, and the trainer is gonna abide by whatever he wants to do. I don't think it's gonna make much of a difference anyway in the rematch.
So I want to follow up with something else that Joshua said this week. He said that it feels as though he doesn't get the respect from the boxing public, and when he wins, he's going to vacate those titles. So it seems like he's kind of taking a page out of Tyson Fury's book and he's kind of acting out of character a little bit. Do you think mentally that he's 100% dialed in and focused on this fight, or do you think that maybe he's second guessing himself? And he should have that confidence already. He shouldn't have to say things like that. Oh, I'm not getting the respect, so I'm just going to throw these titles away because no one cares about me if I'm the champion or not, whatever. Do you think that's basically him crying out for attention? Like, why would he be saying something like that while he's training for a fight? Why would he even care about something like that right now?
I had Punch Perfect Boxing on my channel Tuesday from out in the UK. D-Style was on there. We talked to him, and that's one of the questions I asked him about the comments about Joshua with the belts, because it seemed out of character. Joshua has made a big deal about the belts, and rightfully so. And this is his third time trying to become heavyweight champion, 3-time heavyweight champion. So it seems important to him. So it was out of character for him to say that. But from what Punch Perfect said, and the reason I wanted to ask him is, being in America, we don't really, our ears aren't to the streets. We don't know what's going on in the UK scene with the media. But according to Punch Perfect, he's been getting a lot of heat, and from what he's saying, a lot of unfair criticism when it comes to the UK media over there. So this is him lashing out. This is him speaking out in frustration. And I don't think he's going to drop the belts. I don't read too much into that. I just think he's frustrated, and he's saying, you're going to respect me for who I am. I'm Anthony Joshua. You're going to respect me whether I have the belts or I don't have the belts. Whether it's fair to him for him to be frustrated or not, I don't know. Like I said, I'm my ears aren't to the street when it comes to the UK scene. But getting it from a UK boxing expert, he's saying that there's a lot of unfair criticism when it comes to the UK media to Anthony Joshua, and this is him speaking out of frustration and lashing out at them. There's a tumultuous relationship between Anthony Joshua and the UK media. But as I said, this is what comes with the territory when you're one of the faces of your country's. You're one of the athletic faces of your country. So that's what Anthony Joshua is. Canelo gets a lot of the same thing in Mexico, right? Mayweather got it in America. This is what happens.
Yeah, but Canelo's not like going around saying, "Oh, I'm getting this." Like,
true.
What is Joshua? He wants everybody to call him Your Highness, or what? Like, he wants everybody, like, when he walks down the street, he wants us to throw rose petals to his feet. Like, oh, it's Anthony Joshua. Throw rose petals to his feet.
Here's how Canelo reacts. Here's how Canelo reacts to it, though. Goes, he, listen, I can't please everybody. I'm just gonna go out there and do, and keep doing what I'm doing. I don't care what the people say.
Yeah, he says, what's his line? I'm not focused on the negative.
Yeah.
On the negative. I'm focused on the positive.
I guess my point is, it shows fragility going into the biggest fight of your life. You need to be mentally strong. You can't show fragility. Everything bothers me when I don't like any criticism. But again, it's how I react to that criticism. Nobody likes being criticized. Nobody likes being told they're less than, or they're not good enough, or I didn't do what I was supposed to do. But you know what? When you mature and you grow, you got to react to it. You gotta accept it. It's gonna bother you, but you can't let it weigh on you and break you down mentally. You got to.
So he wants trumpets. He wants trumpets when he walks out. He wants rose petals to his feet. Oh, hail Anthony Joshua! Like, you know who's going to disrespect you? The biggest form of disrespect. He's going to be punching you in the face, and his name is Alexander Usyk. What are you going to do about it? That's all you got to worry about. Don't worry about what D-Style's saying or what 408 is saying or what Joe Habib is saying or what Calix is saying or Drew Evo is saying or the people in the chat are saying. Worry about Usyk. He's going to be disrespecting them. There's no greater form of disrespect than punching you in the face. So how about you worry about that disrespect and do something about it? And don't worry about what people are saying. That's my message to Anthony Joshua. You're sounding like a baby right now. Okay, we're not going to play trumpets when you walk down the street. We're not going to throw rose petals to your feet. Okay, we're not going to be singing songs about Anthony Joshua and then, oh, Anthony Joshua's the best. Anthony Joshua's the best. Like, we're not going to be singing songs about you and all that shit. How about you do something about it? Because Alexander Usyk's going to disrespect the fuck out of you when that bell rings.
Wow. Okay. D-Style says, shout out to D-Style. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says he wants rose petals thrown at his feet. Wow. All right. So we talked about this during the week about Gabriel Flores. Obviously suffered another bad defeat. Some people question him whether he should retire or not. But I pose another question. If he doesn't retire and he chooses to go on, will he be relegated to gatekeeper status? Can he bounce back from this and actually, become a champion or at least get some big wins under his belt? Or is, like I said, is he done at the top level? I'm going to start with you, Drew. Do you think that he could rebound from another crushing defeat like this?
No. And that's plain and simple no. Because you lose to a guy that came up from cruiserweight twice. Possibly, even this, if he stops you, you're probably retiring if he stops you. Because who are you going to beat? He's the champion. You're not going to get a belt as long as he's fighting. And you're probably going to retire before he does. So, at the end of the day, if he loses his fight, Lerone gets stopped, I think he's done. And that's why when I was on here last time and the zone make a mistake in signing AJ to this type of contract, it was a mistake because he's in a crossroads fight.
Well, I was talking about Gabe Flores.
Oh, go.
Gabe Flores and his loss.
Oh, you cut out a little bit before you did. But I'll be honest with you. I think tell you the truth, he needs a new trainer. He needs to work out more because he didn't have power to keep this guy off of him. Like, you move up to 130, you went that up from 130. When the guy you fought last time, you couldn't keep him off you. Your power can't keep him off you. Then you decide to move up to 135. You still don't have power. You couldn't keep this guy off you. He makes Paulie Malignaggi looks like a strong guy in a strong man's contest test.
Wow.
That's how bad Gabe Flores' power is at the end of the day. Yeah. So I don't know, and it's a shame because the last fight when people were saying his dad should have stopped it and he didn't, this was even worse. I don't think he beats anybody in the top 15 at 135. I think he needs a new trainer. I think this kid really needs to figure out and do some searching.
Gotcha. What's up, Mighty Max? How you doing, brother?
Yo, what's good, guys? Thank you so much for having me on. Sorry for my unprofessionalism. I just got home, so
no worry about it.
My computer on me and all that, but good to see you guys.
You good? So we're talking about Gabe Flores, obviously another crushing defeat. A lot of people are saying that maybe he should consider retiring. Well, what if he doesn't retire? Will he be demoted and relegated to gatekeeper status, or can he become a top-level fighter in this sport? What are your thoughts?
I don't think he'll go all the way down to gatekeeper status, but they're going to have to be very cautious moving him forward. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't just lost twice back-to-back. Not back-to-back. I mean, he did have a win in between, but he squeaked out a majority decision. He's taken some severe punishment in these fights. He's gotten battered in these fights, and, I'm not sure his chin's necessarily gone, but he got hurt by a guy who had 7 knockouts and 20 wins. He was dropped. He needs to be moved very slowly, very cautiously, and I do agree with the last guy, Drew. I do agree that he should hire a new trainer because this isn't working. He's been figured out. He's been dominated a few times. His power needs to be advanced. I mean, this guy can't keep these guys off of him. He can't keep better fisted fighters off of him, let alone these punchers. So I do think he can come back. I don't think he'd go all the way down to gatekeeper status. He's too young. He still has talent, natural talent, but he's going to need to be moved cautiously and make a lot of changes for sure.
Gotcha. Calix, is there hope for Gabe Flores Jr., or do we close the book on him?
No, you're more familiar with Top Rankers Enterprise than I am. I know you've interviewed Bob before. Who's Bruce Trampler? What's his duty with Top Rank? Bruce Trampler, is he the matchmaker?
He's a matchmaker, correct?
Okay,
yeah.
He said Gabe's career is over. That's what he said on Twitter 2 days ago. He's replying to somebody. Let me read you the tweet. Gabe's career is already called. A good kid who doesn't need to get hit in the head anymore. Both sides agreed health is more important. Still young, time to get a job and have a good life. Wishing brave Gabe Flores Jr. and his fighting heart all the best. So that's Bruce Trampler on Twitter. So as D-Style and I talked about a couple of days ago, and D-Style said it Saturday night that he needs to retire. I mean, it sounds harsh at 22 years old, but there was just no way forward because Top Rank wasn't going to work with him anymore. You're not going to just out of the goodness of your heart as a promotional company keep working with a guy who is of no use to you. He's not going to be of use as a gatekeeper because he's just going to get beat up and nobody's going to want to watch that. And then he hasn't even really built up that big of a name for himself in order to be a great gatekeeper name to put on your resume. And then if you do the thing where you just promote him as a fun fighter against inferior opposition, then he's still getting hit as well. So the style wasn't there, was making a lot of mistakes in the ring. He was just going to keep taking punishment. And it's good for me. It sounds like there's an exit strategy when it comes to what Gabe Flores is doing now.
Gotcha. So, D-Style, do you think that Top Rank's going to drop Gabriel Flores? I think it's.
I already felt. Yeah, I already felt they would, and then Bruce Trampler saying that.
Bruce Trampler saying he's done.
The Trampler said that it's a wrap, bro. Let me just say this. First of all, I consider myself a fan of Gabriel Flores. Meaning, I like the guy. I've interviewed him before. One of my favorite HCP shows ever. He was one of our guests on there, and that was a great show. I took a pie in the face, all types of shit, right? But the point is, I had a genuine like human kind of like, yo, I like this kid. I hope he does well. It looks like he means well and he wants to do great things, but he just didn't look good. Like he just didn't. He made Cabrera look like Mike Tyson in there. Like it's crazy. Cabrera's not a big puncher, guys. He just isn't. And he was bouncing his head back and forth. I was worried about him. And then, they interview him. And I'm thinking to myself, you don't interview somebody after taking a beating like that. Like just let him go in the back and interview the winner, the guy that just won. You know what I mean? But I'm worried about the kid. He almost it's one of those weird, he says the right things after the loss, but you kind of don't know if you believe him or not. It's like a weird kind of thing he's got going on, but his punch resistance isn't there, and he's too young for it not to be there. He has the punch resistance of a fighter in his 40s. He has the punch resistance of a fighter that's been there for 60 fights or something. I'm worried about the kid, and I just don't know if boxing's for him. I just don't.
Yeah. Dave, is it over?
It could very well be over. Yeah, definitely. I did catch that news that Calix had stated from Twitter that Bruce Trampler has released him. And, I'm from the Bay Area, man. So Stockton is an extension of the Bay Area. A lot of us look at Stockton 209 as, our brothers and sisters out there in the Central Valley. So naturally, I rooted for him. I also rooted naturally for Andy Vences, El Tiburon from San Jose, who also got released from Top Rank after 2 very closely contested fights at 130 pounds. He's without a promoter and a manager too. And now Gabe finds himself in these shoes. Gatekeeper's usually like what we call former champion though, right? Someone who was like at the top and then came down. For Gabe Flores, prior to Xander Zayas, he was the youngest prospect ever signed to Top Rank. That was a distinction he had before Xander Zayas, a 15-time national champion. All right, this is a kid, basically at 16, that did not go to regular high school, did not get to have that privilege, was at national tournaments every weekend, competing as an elite amateur. Didn't have the natural end. I have to point this out. He's a victim of violence, like the worst kind of violence possible. His mother was murdered. All right? If anybody deserves a mental health break, it's Gabe Flores. It's Gabe Flores. Okay? He deserves a mental health break. So like I was telling Drew on the Shoe Shine on Monday, I don't know what's going on in his mind, but physically, there was a lot going on. And that came forward when we saw him get an ass whooping from El Venado Lopez, 126 natural featherweight, when he and his dad imploring him, let's stop the fight. Let's stop the fight. I'm glad we're bringing this up because the issue here is the father-son dynamic between him and his father. Now, his father's not outlandish, loud, boisterous, rude, like some other father-son training teams. We're going to be talking probably about Teofimo's dad in the news. Robert the Ghost Guerrero's dad was very animated, but they had a successful relationship. Danny Garcia, Angel Garcia, a very successful father-son team. For Gabe Flores, his dad should have thrown in the towel when he was getting his ass whooped by El Venado Lopez. That was just one of the fights where he took too much punishment early on. D-Styles nailed it. His punch resistance is shot. For a 15-time national champion, his defense and his skill set should have been improved upon when they saw what had happened against El Venado Lopez. Top Rank has no choice but to let him go now. So if he goes and crosses the street and say, we're going to keep pushing and fighting and inks a deal with PBC, he'll most definitely be a gatekeeper. All right. What I think he should do, like everybody here says, his father needs to let him go to somebody else. He needs to take a very long, lengthy layoff, one where they should spare no expense with advanced imaging, MRIs, CAT scans. I think there's one called the topography. They need to make sure that everything up here is good. Because if it's not, then he does need to hang him up. If it's okay here, if that's not the issue, he could absolutely maybe come back in a year or so, or maybe 2 years, with a smaller promotional company like Thompson Boxing that works with, Mexican-American talent on a smaller club scale in California, putting on these good shows, and rebuild him slowly and see what happens after 1 or 2 fights. Otherwise, he's going to be the Mexican-American version of James Kirkland. And we saw how James Kirkland looked after his long layoffs.
Hey, by the way, somebody said in the chat there's no minors in boxing. There is minor leagues. Tank Davis fights in that league. I'm just anyway.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I could see him continuing on, even after being dropped by Top Rank, and I could just see him kind of being a grifter in the sport until maybe someone picks him up, or maybe he'll be a fill-in for one promoter here, a fill-in for another promoter there. I want to root for the kid. He seems like a good guy. Seems like a good kid, well-spoken, likable person. But I have to say he may just not have it, And this is a sport where, you can try and you can try to improve or whatever, but the whole process of staying around, trying to get better, sometimes will get you hurt. And that's the big thing. So, his father may have to step in and just have that conversation with him. Someone close to him, like his father, a family member, has to jump in there and just say, hey, you know what? I love you. I don't want to see you get hurt anymore. We gotta try something else. Now, speaking of father-son dynamic, there was an interview on the Isaac Dogbo, Joette Gonzalez fight on ESPN. It was Mark Kriegel interviewing Teofimo Lopez Sr. And Teofimo Lopez Sr. has been very vocal about how his son was in no condition to fight, against George Kambosos, and that he wanted him to go to the hospital, wanted to get checked out, but Teo refused to do so. And Mark Kriegel really pressed him in this interview and said, well, if you knew that he was, in such bad shape medically, he was in no condition to fight, that he could possibly die by entering that ring, then why didn't you stop it? Well, I couldn't stop it. He'd never talk to me again. Or, there was nothing I could do. He wanted to fight and I just couldn't stop it. So I'm sitting there saying to myself, you couldn't stop it, really? If he was really hurt as an injured and in poor condition, as seriously as you said he was, you really believe that there was nothing that you could do? And I just put myself in that situation. If that was my son, would I allow him to fight knowing what I knew going into that fight? Because these guys have to fill out medical questionnaires going into the fight. So if I was Teofimo Sr. and I was really that concerned, if all those things were true, which I believe they were, obviously, because they were verified by a medical professional, right? Mm-hmm. With all those things being true and you not revealing them, I would have come out and just told the commission that my son can't fight. He wants to fight. I'm telling him not to fight. I would have went straight to the commission and let him know exactly what was going on. But in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, I'm going to sound like a piece of shit saying it, I think his father didn't give a fuck, and he put the money before his son's health. I firmly believe that. I don't have factual evidence to prove that, but that's what I believe. And to be honest with you, I think that's a scumbag move, and I have to question this guy, not only as a father, but as a man for doing what he did and allowing his son to fight that night. Let's start with you, Dave. What are your thoughts on hearing what Teofimo said in this interview with Mark Kriegel? I don't know if you watched it, but I pretty much summed it up for you.
Oh, I heard most of it, and I was shocked too. Yeah, I even heard Maestro's take on it. Man, okay, here's the deal. We just talked about Gabe Flores and in that fight where he should have thrown in the towel for his son, right? Because things could have been different for Gabe Flores in his last outing. And we've got all of these titles on the line. And we've talked about it right here on your show here on the Roundtable repeatedly. If there is an injury, it's your duty to report it to to whatever state athletic commission is hosting the fight, right? Why would you jeopardize all those titles, everything you've worked for? You could have postponed this fight again. It had already been postponed, over 2 times that year? Nobody was dying or clamoring to see him fight Kambosos anyways. And here he picks up a loss. He loses the belts. He set in motion everything for Haney to take his belts and whatnot. His dad, like you said, ultimately as his trainer was responsible to do that. And things could be completely different for him right now as we speak. If there was a life-threatening injury, something that could potentially have cost him his life, as the doctors have said, he should have 100% reported it to the state athletic commission, bowed out of the fight, postponed it, canceled it, whatever. And Teofimo, he's such a young guy, he could have gone on to have still been undefeated at this time.
D, what are your thoughts on this? Does any of this surprise you?
Well, look, let me go piece by piece here. So first, my default position anytime a fighter loses is to give the winner credit. That's always my default. It has always been my default position, right? So keep in mind that I do believe there is some we don't want to admit Kambosos beat us here. There's some of that element there for sure, right? However, do I think it was smart for him to allow himself to get hit in the chest like that by Thor, the 6'5" dude with everything he's got? Was that smart? No, it wasn't. He sent him back. He was standing behind some weights, which tells me he wasn't really expecting that, right? But my point is, it's always been my default position, but the more and more I hear his dad talk, and look, I've interviewed Senior before. This It's been on my channel several times, but I got to keep it real. I didn't like how they were acting after the fight. I didn't like the we won 11-2. That's what he said. Okay, I didn't like the excuses. I didn't like the conspiracy theories. Oh, they wanted to take the belts off of me so they could give them to Haney. I didn't like any of that. All that was trash to me. And they still haven't walked that back. They still haven't taken back those words. Like, as ridiculous as that sounds. And I wish Krieger would have pushed on that more. But as far as the specific injury, look, there's no doubt in my mind that Teofimo Sr. loves his son, okay? And if he genuinely felt that his son was going to die or something could happen, I honestly, and maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I don't believe he would put his son in that position. I think they were still very confident they could have beaten Kambosos. I think they were really confident they could take him out early. I think they were confident going into the fight. And I don't think he expected that fight to go the distance. I don't think he expected his son to get dropped in the first round. I don't think he expected the resistance they got in that fight. That I will say, right? So now, did he take a gamble with his son? I guess you can say that. I just don't believe he thought it would be that type of fight. I think they thought they would get him out of there in the first 5 rounds or something, and they would move on. Right. And I do believe they didn't want to postpone it again. Teofimo at this point. It had been, how many times was that fight postponed? That shit was ridiculous with Chiller.
It was insane. It was
and then it got canceled and all that. So I'm going to say that I don't believe. I just think they felt they could get away with it. It's the same position I took in the Gary Russell situation. I think he thought he would be able to beat Magsayo, and he didn't think his shoulder would blow out that way. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel the same way about this situation. I don't think they felt it was going to be as grave of a situation as it turned out to be.
Gotcha. Mighty Max, what are your thoughts, man? Did Teo Sr. put his wallet before his son's health?
You know, it's a tough call because it's obvious that Teofimo Sr. loves his son, but he also loves his son's career. And it's obvious he mentioned many times he loves money. So it's a tough call. If I had to make a decision, I would say he did not. I'm not quite sure what happened and why they agreed to the fight. Maybe Teofimo put on a really brave face. Maybe they didn't realize the extent of how bad it was for Teofimo. Maybe they didn't find out. Maybe they found out too late. There are a lot of factors. And hypothetically, if Teofimo did pull out for the 5th time the fight got postponed, it's pretty much guaranteed he would have gotten stripped. He would have looked horrible to the fans. Everyone would be saying he's ducking Kambosos, which we know isn't true because no one's scared of Kambosos. So it would be he was in a very tight spot there, and I do think it was a horrible decision to put him in there with Kambosos, knowing his condition. But to be honest, I am from Florida. I live in Florida. I know people that know Teofimo Sr. and that know Teofimo Jr., and they always say how much he cares about his son. So if I had to make a decision, I would say no, I don't think he put money above his son, personally.
Gotcha. Drew, what are your thoughts on Teo Sr.'s decision to allow his son to fight, knowing the condition he was in?
Joe, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to be an even bigger piece of shit, to be honest. Like, to be honest, it's when you go into the ring, every time you're risking your life. That's just facts. You can die in the ring, get permanently paralyzed like a heavyweight fighter that fought Carlos Perez about 7 or 8 years ago did. When you say in an interview that you knew your son was hurt, that's your son. Doesn't matter if you're training him or not. That's your son. You got to do anything to protect your son. And he failed to do that as a father at that level. At the second thing, I don't think any of that is genuine because the way he was acting in the corner during that fight. It sounded like he was drunk. And numerous people were saying that too. So I don't want to hear the excuses. You lost the fight. It's just like other fighters that claim to be injured and they lost the fight. A guy that he fought, that he won this bout from Lomachenko, people say he hurt his shoulder. but people are saying you shouldn't make that excuse. Same thing here with Teofimo. If you were really that hurt, or seriously wrong with you, you shouldn't have fight. So at the end of the day, I have no sympathy towards them. You fought, you risked your life. And in that, my opinion, he partly did take the money more than his son. Because if a real father, if that was my son, I'd come right away and say, you're not fighting. Live to see another day. You're still undefeated. You'll get those belts back, and you're still in the rankings. You're due to get another title shot. Don't worry about it. You're gonna make money still in this sport. I'm protecting you.
Gotcha. Calix, what are your thoughts on this whole thing, brother?
I think Matty Max brings up a good point that they were in a tough spot. I'm empathetic towards that because the fight had been canceled so many times. So look, let's not pretend that if Teofimo pulled out of this fight a day or two before the fight, that all of us would have been dragging him. All of us. I know I would have. That being said, what are two things we always hear, Beeb? We always hear it. Before the fight, we hear, I had the greatest training camp in my life. After the fight, we hear, oh, I lost the fight because I was injured. Or I heard Angel Garcia yesterday, another father trainer, saying his son shouldn't have been in there with Errol Spence. He had anxiety in that fight, and that's why we lost the fight. He had anxiety. That's why we've been absent for 2 years. And he's back in the ring. He's looking great. And if he doesn't look great Saturday, guess what we'll be hearing? He has anxiety. He still had anxiety. So I've become so numb to it as a boxing fan. I was saying this earlier when it comes to promoters to myself. I'm on there. I'm seeing Ellerby talk about numbers. I'm seeing Oscar talk about numbers. And I'm just saying to myself, they're both lying. They're both lying. And it's the same thing when I hear this every single time a fighter loses. Lomachenko loses, shoulder injury. Pacquiao loses to Mayweather, shoulder injury. Boo Andre pulls out of a fight, shoulder injury. Charlo pulls out of a fight, back injury. He's in the club the next week on TikTok, dancing in the club, drunk. If Anthony Joshua
was twerking at Wilder, wasn't he?
Because he didn't go to America to train. It's just always something. It's constant. And anxiety is the new one. Like mental health issues. It's all the time. I'm just become so numb to it. So my official stance, my default position, as D-Style pointed his default position out, my default position is you get in the ring, you win or you lose. That's it. You win or you lose. Kambosos gets full credit for me.
I just want to say this real quick. We all know, and look, obviously, if all this is true, this is like more than a normal, but fighters never go to the. I remember Floyd Mayweather was making all his excuses in one of his fights because his hand hurt, and that's why, or I forgot what fight it was, but George Foreman was the first to say, like, man, my hand hurt a lot of the time. I was never 100%, like, going into any fight. His opponent probably had some shit nagging him too, right? We always we never go in 100%, right? So I just want to add this point. When I talked to Teofimo Seniors before, like it was when he was mandatory, but it wasn't announced yet. His words, not mine. What do you think of Kambosos? Oh, he's a less crafty Magdaleno. We'll take him out in 2-3 rounds. That's what he said. Those are his words. That's not my words, right? So they were very confident they were going to take him out. He was just a less crafty Magdaleno to them, right? So it is what it is.
And you can see that watching the fight. Teofimo came out like gangbusters in that first round. They expected to get him out of there early, and it didn't happen. But as somebody put in the chat, none of these dudes have fought with a broken spinal back like Mike Tyson. A spinal.
I was talking to Maestro earlier today about the whole Danny Garcia anxiety thing. And I said to him, I said, didn't everyone have anxiety during COVID? I know I did. I was flipping out, you were calling me every day. I was bitching to you about the masks. I was bitching to you about quarantining. I was pissed off every freaking day during the quarantine, man. I was freaking arguing with people. I hated COVID. So I don't think anyone friggin' had a good experience with COVID, man. I think COVID sucked for everybody. So I don't think it just sucked for Danny Garcia, man. So
According to Angel, it did.
you know, that's crazy. But I want to get one last topic in. Big news with Seniesa Estrada signing with Top Rank. And we knew she was leaving Golden Boy, but she didn't reveal right away who she was going to sign with. It was kind of a surprise to everyone. A lot of people were thinking maybe it could be Matchroom. Maybe it could even be Jake Paul's promotional company, MVP Promotions. But it was Top Rank. And it's funny, too, because Bob said so many negative things about women's boxing. So I don't know how, any woman boxer would want to sign with Top Rank now. But again, you got Micaiah Mayer there. But outside of that, she's like the only one. But obviously, she must have gotten a great deal. D-Star, since you're flitching your fingers there, what do you think of Seniesa Estrada's move to go to Top Rank?
The Godfather has spoken. They forked out the cash. There's no doubt. You know what I mean? I think Bob Arum has talked shit about women's boxing before, and he did that whole what's it gonna do, Valdez, Shakur? Nobody really pays attention to women's boxing. Now, granted, he didn't say he doesn't pay attention to women. He never said he hates women's boxing. He said y'all. He said you guys over there don't pay attention to women's boxing. That's what he said, right? I don't want to defend Bob, but he said the people don't give a shit about women's boxing, right? So let's not misquote Bob. Bob didn't say he didn't give a fuck. He said y'all don't give a fuck, okay? But with that said,
you run interference for Bob.
Like I'm just saying. But here's the thing. I'll keep it short and sweet. I figured Seniesa Estrada was going to go with a real promotional company. And I thought it was going to be Matchroom. I was wrong, obviously. But I'm not shocked she went with Top Rank. Top Rank has made it work for Micaiah Mayer. For all the things people say, they've gotten her the fights. They worked out a deal where she could be fighting a Bumgarner. I didn't see Matchroom win that first bid or whatever you want to call it, or make the better offer. It was Top Rank that made the better offer. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I think she knows that Bob Arum has a history of working with a lot of Latino fighters. Top Rank, okay? She knows that it's similar to the situation with Golden Boy, but they've got a better platform. They got, no offense to the Zone, but ESPN is ESPN at the end of the day. Okay, it just is. All right, it's the most watched sports network in America. It just is. So she understands that. She knows that Bob Arum has a lot of connections with Mexican promoters in Mexico, and so she's going to get fights. She's going to get more fights. But now she's going to make more cash. She's going to get more cheese. All right. I don't know if we're going to get that Marlene Esparza rematch, though. That's the only thing I'm kind of disappointed about. But I'm looking forward to see what happens. And look, I've been saying this for a while. Seniesa Estrada I'm just talking about skill, is the best skilled pound for pound women boxer on this planet.
I agree.
She's better than all of them. But she's not the most accomplished. She hasn't, you know what I mean? But and I don't want to hear anything. Her weight classes have at least over 100 women in it, not 10. Okay? So in my opinion, they're going to make an investment with her. I think they're looking into the future. Not that Arum has much of a future, but that's another story. But I'm not much to laugh now. You know what I mean?
Discrimination. That's age discrimination.
No. But I'm just saying. But maybe Todd DeBuff had something to do with it. You know what I mean? Next thing, man is out. Maybe Arum's next. You know, I'm just saying.
First,
because Todd DeBuff, he's like the Triple H of Top Rank. You know what I mean?
First, he's
the son-in-law.
C word beep. He's using the C word.
What's
now.
going on with him?
No, I only said the word cunt because that's what everybody just called his name. What do you mean? What's going on over here? Anyway, but that's all I got to say. Shout out to Seniesa Estrada. I already knew she was going to side with Top Rank. She texted me personally and told me, "You and Ring IQ thought you had the inside. You didn't have the inside scoop. I had the inside scoop." She told me personally. She texts me every night. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
Whoa! What is this? want to know this stuff.
So I'm gonna go with Top Rank. Like, okay.
Oh,
I don't want to know your.
I lied to Rhea Q and B. I lied to them. I said I was going with Jake Paul.
Please.
That's what she told me.
All right. So, Drew, do you like this move for Seniesa Estrada? I think it's going to pan out for her over at Top Rank.
First of all, I don't know what the hell's females' problem is. They'd rather get called bitches than cunts for some reasons.
Another one.
But just I'm just saying it. But at the end, it's a good move financially. She's gonna get on national television instead of an app. So it's a good move, but what else can you do? What else? Because tell you the truth, he's kind of white at sometimes because some divisions only do have maybe like 17 women in it. Half of them are under 500 records and everything. So I keep asking people, how can you call Clarissa Shields the greatest women fighter of all time where the division she's competed in only have like 17 fighters in it?
That's true.
So, but it's a good move for her financially. She might get some good fights, but I think she made a better move. She made the right move for her because I don't think Golden Boy was doing anything with her. No. But I'm surprised she signed with Top Rank. I thought she was going to Matchroom.
Wow. Calix, you like the move, brother?
I'm probably the least qualified to speak on women's boxing on this panel, but what immediately when I saw this move, because I thought she was signing with Matchroom DAZN. Remember, D-Style, I said that last week. I said I think that's where she would go. But when I saw Top Rank, I thought ESPN. So to me, this is a long-term move past boxing, right? She's got the gift of gab. She's got it, man. She's got the full package. So why not go somewhere where fighting career plus a commentating gig and a commentating gig long-term? And we're talking about both men's boxing coverage and women's boxing coverage. So to me, this is like a career signing to where we're talking 10, 15 years down the line. If Top Rank still has an exclusive deal with ESPN, she'll be with ESPN. So good for her.
Yeah. Max, what are your thoughts on the move?
Well, if you're going to leave the zone, and you're a female boxer, there aren't many places you can go. Obviously the PBC is not going to work out. Matchroom or Top Rank, and we saw how well Top Rank has done with Michaela Mayer. I guess I don't even know. I guess that was the better option. I haven't looked at her weight class. I don't know where the fighters at her weight class fight at, but I assume more of them fight on Top Rank than they do at Matchroom. At least for her sake, I hope so. So I guess it's a good move. Top Rank's a bigger company than DAZN. She'll probably get better viewership, and there is a good chance, as was just previously mentioned, she could get a commentating gig sometime down the line. So I assume it was a pretty calculated decision on her end.
Okay, D-Style, I'm going to read it, but I'm not going to read it the way you want me to read it. CUNT, you have to read it, Beeb. It's super.
Come on, you gotta read it.
Can't say it, man.
Gotta do it for the people. You know what I mean?
Can't say it. That's against my.
Sure, let me read it.
Okay, Dave, what do you think of this move by Seniesa Estrada?
I love me some super bad, man. She's bad. Even my wife is a huge fan of her too. I have to say, this is just anecdotal, guys. But I went to the Stevenson fight versus Oscar Valdez, and I was watching the ladies fight on DAZN on my phone while Keyshawn Davis was fighting, and all the Latino guys behind me were watching my phone going, who's winning? Who's winning? Is Amanda Serrano winning? Who's winning? More people were interested surrounding me on what was going on my phone between the two ladies fighting than what was going on in front of them watching Keyshawn Davis with a journeyman. Okay. Bob making having a change in tune and changing. I think because he's seen the success Michaela Mayer has had, not only snatching up a title, but her success on the microphone because she's being broadcasted out to the foreign markets. I think this was a great pick-me-up on behalf of Bob Arum because, yes, Seniesa Estrada's already proven on DAZN that she's got a good gift of gab as well. So not only will she make a nice addition to their roster, but she's going to be great on the mic too. So I'm really impressed by this pickup. And I hope to see her fighting in California like they have been, putting her on Vegas cards or in Southern California.
She's from East LA. That's right. So I just want to throw it out there.
I think her and Micaiah May are friendly. They kind of talk and stuff too, so that could have helped out the situation a little bit. And like you said, Dave, she's a great commentator, and we see Micaiah May doing commentary work over at Top Rank, so she'll possibly get that same similar role where she can fight as well as be a commentator.
And bilingual.
Yeah.
Bilingual, right?
Correct.
So she can definitely cover do the broadcast.
I just want to know why y'all like misrepresenting the Bob Father, saying he talks shit about women's boxing. He was talking about y'all, saying you all don't care about women's boxing. He never said he didn't care.
You know what? I was going to say something about Bob, but I'm not going to say it.
Interference. Go ahead, Drew. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
I was going to say something about Bob, but I'm not going to say it.
I can't even whistle. I used to be able to whistle. I tried to whistle. I haven't whistled in years. Let me see if I can do it again. I can't even whistle anymore. This is a disgrace. That's sick.
I can't find a whistle with all these beer bottles here.
I know you don't have the whistle anymore. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good move for her. Like I said, ESPN is a bigger platform. More people are going to watch ESPN than DAZN. And I hate to keep bashing DAZN, but I just don't think they market that app well. I don't think they do good advertisement. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. You know how you have these cable companies, and you have they bundle up you can get Netflix, you can get Peacock. All these apps are included in my cable package. DAZN, I think, should market themselves to these cable companies and bundle up with some of these cable companies, so more people will have exposure to this app, because a lot of people don't even know what this app is. And I think they could do a lot better if they were just marketed better and do better with their advertisement. So,
have you ever gone to a restaurant and it's expensive, and while you're eating, you're like, why the fuck does shit cost so much? That's DAZN.
You're coming up with some really good comparison and analogies here, kid, tonight.
I paid $30 for this plate.
Besides the C word, you did a great job tonight. I got to give you credit.
What do you mean? It's $69.99 for this shit? The fuck? Like that?
All right, guys. That'll do it. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you, everyone on the panel, for joining us tonight. And we will be back on D Styles' channel next Thursday for the Roundtable 92. And make sure you check out D Style Boxing on Mondays for the Aftermath. And make sure you check out D Style and Calix. What day is that? Is that show on Wednesdays?
Well, we'll go live Tuesdays, Wednesdays. We don't have an exact time. But,
okay, so Tuesdays. Make sure you check them out on Tuesdays. They'll give you the time. Make sure you check Dave out on the Shoeshine podcast with Drew Evo.
Late Monday nights.
Now, what time is that? 9 o'clock, Dave, or 10 o'clock?
7:30 Pacific.
7:30 Pacific. So
and Mighty Max, the future of the white team. I don't know how much of a future we're going to leave them, but we'll leave them some. I think. Yeah. You know what I mean? We don't kill the sport. You know what I mean? He'll have some left.
Make sure you check out the Ringside Reporter podcast every Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, and we are out of here. Thank you so much, everyone.
Appreciate it.